What's up guys, eBase here. I'm just going to give you a quick little rundown on the Scuf Impact. I know a few of you guys were asking for it, kind of interested on the pros and cons of the controller and whether or not it's actually worth to buy. I actually have two other controllers here. This is the Scuf 4PS. I believe it's called the 4PS. It's the original Scuf. This is before they had their big update. This is a standard DS4 controller. However, the other things I added are control freaks. I have a short domed control freak thumbstick on the left and a tall concave on the right, which is actually what I do with my Scuf controllers as well. And because I was in search of a paddle system, as you can see, I have the Collective Minds 4PS strike pack on the back. Is it nice? Kind of. If you're looking for a paddle system just for the sake of a paddle system, this is nice. The only downside is you have to be hardwired into the system at all times to use it because it doesn't have a secondary power source. The other downside to it is that, I'll show you, these paddles are flimsy as hell. Honestly, I could actually snap this if I just give a little effort. But for 30 bucks, the strike pack is worth a buy if you need a paddle system in a pinch. The Control Freak thumbsticks are, I think, 15 or 20 bucks. So for about 50 bucks for a Scuf-like controller, you can't beat it. To install it, you just plug it right into the charge port, clicks down, this little security latch flips up and over, and that's it. Actually, I didn't set that right. There we go. And that's it. Now, the original Scuf, while a good design, did have its flaws. The paddles on the back were kind of a flimsy plastic. The click on them, I don't know if you can hear that, it was pretty decent, but over time it wore out and it became soft, and sometimes you wouldn't actually be able to even feel the register on the paddle. The other downside to this controller is that over time they would just break and people would have to send them in, get them replaced. I've had this thing for probably a year and a half now, probably a little bit longer. I haven't had any problems with it, luckily. That doesn't mean it will last forever, but it's still a solid controller. I still use it from time to time. Please disregard the color scheme on this. My inner Italianist came out and I went super gaudy on it. Now the Scuf Impact, as you can see, much better color scheme as well. It's a completely different design. It's more similar to like an Xbox controller. Now, I have smaller hands and I didn't think I would really dig the controller at first. It was a little clunky. However, now I can't use anything else. And while it's shaped like an Xbox controller, my thought was that maybe they took an Xbox controller and just put in DS4 guts. However, that's not the case. After looking at it, it looks like they completely molded this controller to its own design and created what you see here. Now, the first thing I noticed about the Scuf is that the Scuf grip on the back, you can see that texturized rubber coating. It's the same Scuf grip they've always had. However, it doesn't loop around the front on the bottom here, which isn't a big to-do. However, because the palm of my hand sit on the front of the controller for the most part, I wish it did reach up and around, but hey, that's what she said. Anyway, some of the other features of the controller, you can get any paint job you want, which is nice. I got this controller for about $180, $190, somewhere around there, which is a good chunk of change. However, they had a sale, and I believe they still have that going on now. If not, I know some streamers out there, especially for Destiny, have coupon codes for 5% off. One of them being Mesa Sean. I think the coupon code is Mesa Army, and you get 5% off. So if that sale isn't going on, at least you get something off. Now, with the color scheme that you could pick, obviously, probably the first thing you notice is this control disc here. This is completely removable. They give it as an option for you to get for fighting games or whatever you want to use them for. I got it just because it didn't cost extra. You can pop it right off, as you can see, and you still have a standard DS4 here. Or if you want to just keep it on and not lose it, like I do, I just pop it back on. Doesn't really make super differences to your gameplay, and it's actually kind of stupid for me to have because I don't really use it, but I thought it was cool, so I got it. The thumbsticks still have one of the issues that the old thumbsticks did, where the rubber over time kind of wears out and it can either fray or start to peel, or if you're like me, I don't have super acidic oils in my skin. However, they do over time can break down rubber. So what happens is the rubber kind of wears down and then it actually kind of gets sticky, which actually isn't a bad thing because it'll keep my thumb on the stick, but it feels weird and I just don't like it. The outer rings around the thumbstick, with what I said before, can actually spin and the thumbsticks will come out and you can easily replace them. They go for about 15 bucks on Scuf's website, and then you can just put them back in, tighten the ring down, and then you're good to go, which obviously you can't do with the DS4. The buttons on the controller, if you get them painted like I did on both controllers, kind of beat out something that the DS4 did to me all the time. The plastic would wear down on these buttons, on actually really all the buttons, and the buttons would become slick over time. Now, the downside to that is obviously you go to press a button, your thumb could slip off, or it just doesn't feel as nice as it once was when you got a new controller. With these controllers, like I said, I've had this one since it came out, and this one probably almost 2 years. I haven't had that issue, which is awesome. Now, another feature you can do with the Scuf controllers, you can take the rumble out if you don't use them. I don't use them, especially for first-person shooters, so it reduces the weight of the controller. This is actually really light, and it's nice, especially if you're playing for a very long time. Another feature of the controller that they've updated, as you can see on the original Scuf and actually any DS4, is that the charge port doesn't really have anything to hold the cable, so the cable would fall out. If this stretched out at all, the metal that held the actual port or cable itself, the cable would never kind of sit in there nice and hold. With this one, they kind of put a little lip around the, I don't know, call it an injection port. We'll go with that. Anyway, the cable plugs in just like it normally does. However, it's a little bit more stiff and it's less likely for you to yank it out of the controller. Not a super plus, but you know, a welcome addition. And as you could also see on the touchpad here, they slotted out the top opening so you can see what the controller is doing, whether it's on, whether it's off. Right now I have Destiny on. This is telling me I have my supercharged. It's a yellow light. You can't really see it because oh, there you go. That's not too bad. Another feature with the controller, as you can see, the headphone jack is still roughly in the same spot, but they kind of give you a nice little concave. So once again, the controller sticks in there better, and if you hit it or whack it, it doesn't pull out right away, which is actually very nice. I do use that from time to time. On the back of the controller, besides the Scuf grip we already talked about, are the paddles. The plastic has been reworked. It's a little bit denser. It is still a little flimsy, but it's a thin piece of plastic. You know, that's just a given. They are more durable. The click pad underneath them, or the button I should say, is more responsive, and the click is a lot louder, more sturdier, and a much welcome change to the original Scufs, especially with the click or the button underneath sometimes wearing out and not giving the click, and sometimes you press it and you won't even know it. The other change they've made, as you can see on the old Scuf, you can see 2 Allen keys holding each paddle. Those wear out and actually rust over time. Mine are still pretty good condition, but if you wanted to change these paddles, you'd be sitting there for a few minutes getting those out, and hope to God you don't lose those 2 little screws. With these guys, if you have to replace them or if they break, they just slide up and then slide. Well, they should slide right out. Let me see if I can get this. Of course, it's breaking my stones a little bit. Let's try this one. Alright, so these paddles are a little OP, and I can't get them out right away. But either way, as you can see, they do come out. Very easily replaceable. But they are sturdier, so the likelihood of you breaking them and have to replace them is a lot less likely. Another thing you can do with the controllers is that the triggers on the back here, I got the trigger stops with them. Now, let me grab my phone, which I apologize, my camera's not really working, so I can't use that at the moment. The trigger stops use a little Allen key that you can rotate. Actually, I could spin this with my finger. Actually, let's start this one. This one's a little bit looser. Apologize, give me 1 sec. So on my right trigger, you can see the auto trigger stop is set to the lowest it can go, whereas this one I just set to the highest. So this is like the standard distance a DS4 trigger would go, whereas this one is the lowest. Now in order for that trigger stop to actually be fully usable, on the top of the controller, the actual L2 and R2 buttons themselves, the cover comes off. Now, let me see, I did it on this one, okay. Basically, all you do, and you just gotta be careful, you know, don't yank it. Just lifted that up now. This controller's really breaking my stones. Oh, there we go. Came right off. That's my R2 button. Now, as you can see, there's a little Allen screw in there, and you have to adjust the tension. They give you the Allen keys for you to use, so that way you don't have to go and actually buy tools. But with the adjustment of that key, whether it's tightening or loosening, will adjust when the button actually triggers. I have it set to a tension where that right there is when I'm shooting. Even though I have the trigger stop set to where it is, and I still have a little bit more room, just because I have it set that low, there's less time for me to fire. Less real estate the button has to travel, whereas if I was using a DS4, you have to press the button all the way down here, which doesn't seem like much, but the amount of time it takes for you to press that button in a firefight that takes, I don't know, fractions of a second, it makes a difference. And that's it really for the triggers. That is optional, you don't have to get that, but I do highly recommend it. And one of the last things about the controller is, back to the paddles, I got them fully remappable. So you could actually see that little square indentation on the back. Right there is where you actually put a magnetic key, which actually just sticks on the back of the controller. And while that's there, you hold down whichever paddle you want. For instance, this is my X button, so I use that for jumping. This one I don't actually use. This is triangle for me, and this is square. So this will switch my weapons, this will revive or open packages, specifically to Destiny, that is. That's not every game. And like I said, I don't use this one, so I could actually take this one out if I don't want to use it, which I actually do 99% of the time. I put it in back in just for the video here. Once again, that's optional. You don't have to get it. You can actually have the paddle set to whatever you want when you order the controller, but if you play more games than Destiny, Call of Duty, or anything like that, I do recommend getting that remappable key. And other than that, guys, that's really it. If you have any other questions, put a comment on the video, and I will answer it as soon as I can. Other than that, thanks for viewing.